If you can build an Inc. 5000 company, find product market fit and do all this stuff, if you wrote down, how do I build a business I don't have to work in, and actually thought about it, you'd probably be able to do it. With that in place, if you want to build a business you don't have to work in, there are certain things you cannot be lazy with. And there are other things you can. The things that you can't be lazy with are, you must have a very clear customer, you must have a very clear articulatable result, and you must have a very clear mechanism that you have to provide those customers with that clear result. Clear customer, clear result, clear mechanism.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? We all want our employees to create value across the company. We want them to innovate on problems that we don't even know exist. We want them to be proactive. This is entrepreneurial thinking. When you lead a team of people who think like entrepreneurs, you have something powerful. You have something where they're able to share their own ideas. They're able to make decisions. They think with ownership. Now, I know how powerful this is, but today in this episode, we're going to talk about how powerful it is for you and what you can learn from other entrepreneurs about entrepreneurial thinking. Today, our guest is Dane Maxwell. He's had many successes. He's been on the Inc. list before with his companies, but today he shares with us some of the insights behind his new book, Start From Zero. It really is about, what does it take to think like an entrepreneur and have this entrepreneurial thinking that drives the company to new levels of growth and success. Inside this interview, one of the things I like about it is we talked about the difference between ownership and expert. You may think you want everyone to be in ownership, but if you get them to think like owners, there's a power behind that too. Thanks for tuning in here to Grow Think Tank. Really excited about sharing this with you. And before you run, I have done so many interviews over the last few weeks. I have such an exciting time to share with you that those interviews have been organized into the 12 core principles of fast growth companies. So all you have to do to get that is go to genehammett.com/worksheet. So you can get the 12 principles, and I've been able to go in there and find which episodes will align to each individual episode. When you subscribe to Grow Think Tank, you will find exactly what you need so that you can move forward. And many of them haven't been published yet, depending on when you're hearing this, but you can tune in to the date that means the most to you. Now here's the interview with Dane. Hi, Dane. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, excited to have you on the show and really want to talk about this book, but also some elements around it that would make us better leaders. Let's kick off this with, you've got a new book coming out, launching March 31st. Why did you have to write this book?
I have a tendency to hide from my self-worth, and I can self-sabotage in interesting ways. So I've accomplished quite a bit in the business world, but I wouldn't let myself really know that. I built a fully self-managed company. I've had an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. And I've got a CEO that runs a business that I meet with quarterly. I've achieved like pretty remarkable things in business, just factually. A 10-year-old business with a CEO that I don't even step foot in. Most entrepreneurs aren't able to do that. And I would still tell myself I'm either garbage or piece of crap. And someone asked, a book publisher contacted me and asked me if I wanted to write a book on entrepreneurship. And I said, it's time to put the beast of pattern recognition with business that I built through all the failure into one comprehensive book. And I wanted to create a book that the world had never seen before. Nothing like it exists, and I don't think anything like it ever will. And it's got so much research and data and results and examples in it that were quite an upper limit for me to face. So primarily selfishly, it was for me to stop hiding from my own potency in business. And putting everything really clearly in a book really made me come front to center with it. So I would write parts of the book and see how good I was at something and be like, I can't be this good at this. And so then I'd hire a self-image coach or a therapy coach to be like, I'm really unable to receive my own brilliance. And, and, and so, and that's like, I'm not brilliant at everything. I just happen to have a really good sense for business. So anyway, that was selfish. And then the second thing was as a gift for humanity, with like just fully comprehensive, fully giving everything away. It's not like you get the sense that the book was like a clever play to get someone to buy a course or anything. It's really all in there. And then finally, third, I made a tremendous mistake early in my life, and I stole a part of a sales letter from someone I really admire. And he called me out on it, and I took it down within one business day. He's like, dude, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm sorry. And I took it down and apologized profusely and continued to over the years, and lost my friendship with him, lost my connection with him. And 5 years later, he publicly bashed me in front of the entire internet for stealing part of his sales letter and called me a fraud and scam publicly. And that hurt so much to have someone I looked up as to a mentor or peer do that. And so I own that mistake. I own that I screwed up there. And I apologize publicly to that man by name in the book as a mistake that I made. And I wanted, and it hurt so bad to be called a fraud that I wanted also for there to be no question in people's mind that I could ever be anything like that.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I want to, kind of bring our audience into the conversation we had a few weeks ago where you reached out and wanted to be on the show. I remembered your name instantly. I remember the number of episode it was. I remember where I was when I listened to it. It was that first podcast episode that I ever just caught me smack between the eyes. And it was Smart Passive Income, episode number 46 with Pat Flynn. Mm-hmm. Pat's been on the show before, included him in my book. And I remember distinctly some of the details behind that interview and how powerful it was. So that's the reason why you're here on the show today, Dane. What are the powerful things in that show? Did I go on too long about why I wrote the book? I apologize. No. Okay. You can tell me if I did, the thing I remember. I just figured Inc. 5000 CEOs, let's just be as brutally honest as I possibly can. Well, I'm sure they can appreciate that. Yeah. The thing I remember around that interview was, similar to the title of your book, Start from Zero, right? Yeah. Is how do you take an idea and how do you know that it's going to work? How do you research it? How do you go out there and dig into this? And what I remember is your uncle who had a real estate business, and you're like, tell me about some of the problems you got going on. And you end up creating like this paper document flow many years ago for the real estate industry. Is that fair to say? Yeah, paperlesspipeline.com. Didn't come up with the idea, didn't build it, built the first version in 8 weeks. It's $2 million business today. And that's what I remembered. No, I didn't do anything with it, but I did follow what you were doing through the foundation. I did follow, kind of the concepts behind it. I was committed to what I was doing, and I'm like, I'm not going to create a software. You may have not directly done anything with it, but I bet you probably did some stuff on the ancillary, like. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because of research that I still believe in that today. I mean, from my research. So trying to understand the mindset of founders and CEOs driving fast growth companies. Yes. Part of the reason why I have the podcast, Let the Secret Out of the Bag, I get to talk to, probably about 10 to a dozen founders every week. And I get to talk to them about what they're doing well, what they're challenged with, and it gives my finger on the pulse of what they're doing. And I learn new ideas, but I'm also better served them because I know them. So that goes way back. That was probably, 6-7 years ago, because this podcast has been 6 years. So let's when we talked setting up this book, I know the book, you had talked about, why you wrote it, but you also believe that in order to, really kind of lead a company, you believe in self-managing companies, which I do too. Like, what What are the core concepts of creating this self-managed company?
Well, yeah. So, by the way, like no one here has to buy the book. Like I'd rather give as much value as I can. If someone wants to check out the book, it's fine. But no one here has to buy any books. And I just want to say that my whole premise and my whole intention with business is building businesses I don't have to work in. And so, my competitor of Paperless Pipeline is one of the biggest competitors in the space, and he offered to buy me. And I was like, no, thank you. And when I told him like my lifestyle and what I'm doing, and he may be generating more revenue than me, but he's like, damn, you were able to do that? You got to, like, how did you set your business up to do that? And I was like, well, it's very intentional. Build a business you don't have to work in. Write that down and look at it and contemplate it. You'll probably figure it out. If you can build an Inc. 5000 company, find product market fit and do all this stuff, if you wrote down, how do I build a business I don't have to work in, and actually thought about it, you'd probably be able to do it. With that in place, if you want to build a business you don't have to work in, there are certain things you cannot be lazy with. And there are other things you can. The things that you can't be lazy with are, you must have a very clear customer. You must have a very clear articulatable result. And you must have a very clear mechanism that you have to provide those customers with that clear result. Clear customer, clear result, clear mechanism. Now, most Inc. 5000 companies have this down, usually by the scale. Maybe they don't, and they're getting lucky. But if you look at like a Weight Watchers or a Dave Ramsey, I mean, it's incredible. Dave Ramsey's one of the top guys in his field. His clear customer is a couple in debt. His clear result is become debt-free. His clear mechanism is the debt snowball. Boom. He can build a multi-million-dollar empire on that premise. He also had really smart marketing where he joint ventured with churches and things like that. There's a non-competitive space that financial gurus don't usually go in. So he was the only guy in that space. He did some cool stuff to grow. But then if you look at like Weight Watchers, clear customer, women usually in their 40s or more, clear result, lose 10 pounds in a week is usually what they do. Clear mechanism is count points. You can articulate your business like that. Weight Watchers is a near billion-dollar company. So you want to talk about clear business. You want to talk about clear leadership. You want to talk about building and attracting a team. If you get those three things in place, and those are crystal clear, and then your whole marketing engine is nothing more than telling stories of the results your customers get, you can scale as big as you want. Weight Watchers goes to the billions, and all they do is tell stories of women that have lost weight. And if you want a clear marketing message, you get your clear customer, get them the clear result, get a clear mechanism in like 3 to 4 words, tell stories of your customers and results. That's the entire business. You can build and structure an incredible team around that. If that's really clear. Look, with my CEO for Paperless Pipeline, I mean, he's incredible. And the way that I found him is, I found him, you find people that run your companies, they aren't generally looking for work. They're like the top of their field. Like the people that you want running your company is not looking for a job. So you find those people that are highly passionate in the field that you want to hire in, that are big contributors to projects that don't give money, so it's software as a service. You want to hire open source developers. It's just like they're way better than anybody else you could ever find because they code for passion. An open source developer is usually like substantially better than a developer that gets paid at Microsoft. And no offense to Microsoft or anything, it's just one person codes because they love it and the other person codes because they're getting paid. So I find and hire my top developer for Paperless Pipeline, who groomed into the CEO from a Google group for an open source program language. And I did that on purpose. So, but in terms of building a business you don't have to work in, write the sentence down. If you feel like, have the courage to write that sentence down. You probably might not even know you're afraid. How do I build a business I don't have to work in? Maybe not. Contemplate it. Then how can I look for someone to do it? If like someone asked me, they're like, how do you find someone to replace your company? I was like, well, you can start by actually looking. Like, cause you're probably not even looking. You're just wanting it to fall in your lap. If you actually looked, you would. But at the pipeline, there's so much trust there, that I say, hey, 25% profit margin minimum, you can do whatever you want. So I don't know how big the team is. I don't know the names of the people on the team. It might be good if I did, but that's not, I don't know if I have but it's kind of nice is to be that hands off with a business. But the way I was able to do that with something like Paperless Pipeline is a very clear customer. There's a real estate company owner. A very clear result is not transaction management software. It's not even so much paperless, although they might say that. It's so they could have mobility and not have to show up in the office. broker might not even know that until you tell them. Clear result, would you like to have mobility of agents? Would you like to have a mobile office? Yes. Clear customer, company owner, clear result, mobility, clear mechanism, simple transaction management software.
Now, hold on for a second. Dane just talked about the power of telling stories. Now, as a leader, one of the things that you've got to get really good at is the ability to tell stories. Not only stories of customer successes, those are great, but stories of how you want people to lead together, how you want them to take ownership. Stories really do have a power to align people. And the better you are telling those stories, the more you have a chance to connect the people around you. Now, it's great in a sales situation. It's great in even marketing. But when you as a leader tell stories that people are engaged with, it really will help you be the kind of leader that you want to be. Now back to the interview. Well, I appreciate you saying that. When we talked about this whole concept and having you on the show, something that I think it's inside the book, but I really believe that Inc. level leaders embrace this entrepreneur spirit across the workforce. Yes. Not everybody wants to be on the front lines of leadership and forego a predictable check and everything, but they do love their ideas to be part of a business, and they will give more loyalty behind that. Talk to me a little bit about this entrepreneur spirit across the company.
Yeah, I love this. I love it a lot, like not even like a tremendous amount. And the question is how can we allow our teams and employees to innovate our business for us? Find new profit centers, find new revenue streams, find new ways to talk to customers, find new ways to get our customers results. How do we turn our employees into an innovative workforce? And if you instill the entrepreneurial spirit, in the book, Start From Zero, there are 7 skills that I chose to put in there. There's hundreds of entrepreneurial skills, but I chose 7 that I thought if you focused on these, it would build really good entrepreneurial thinking. Some of those skills are outcome thinking versus process thinking, ownership versus expertise, using words that sell, owning your mistakes if you screw up, and these skill and being a newbie as a skill, because a lot of employees try to pride themselves on wanting to know stuff, but as founders, we usually sit in questions, so showing your employees, like if you could show your employees how to adopt a newbie mindset, think like a newbie, think with ownership thinking instead of process thinking, outcome thinking instead of process thinking, ownership thinking instead of being the expert. How can you own the outcome instead of having to be the expert? And then how can you own mistakes when you screw up and know that that's not who you are and you're always worthy of a second chance? Those kinds of things, if you're able to instill in employees. And by the way, this is such an exciting frontier. If any of your listeners want to reach out to me, that's how we could possibly do some workshop or something where I could help their organization be more entrepreneurial, I'd be all over that, all over helping that. Because as an owner, like if you take a hypothetical like the Kolbe A profile, the Kolbe A profile is, are you familiar with Kolbe A?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, most of us are. If you're Inc. 5000, you probably know Kolbe A. I mean, if you were to put a team together with a high quick start, high fact finder, high implementer, high follow through, a team of 4, and you gave them an idea and they built it out for you and you owned that outcome as an owner founder, and you're actually going to be surprised at what they end up create, but they actually create a profitable product line that's rooted in a deeply, severely painful problem. That's like the process and Start From Zero, the process that I've sort of unconsciously did over and over again until I became conscious of it, was find a fundamentally awful problem someone's dealing with. Then figure out and define, and it's got to be awful. Like 110 degrees in a car in the summer. You don't want to sit in that car. That feels terrible. That kind of problem, if you can find them, and like if you're at Inc. 5000, you've got a product market fit, you're selling a product, you can have the Start From Zero processes. You could train them into your employees to go out and talk to your customers that are buying your product and find new pains, new problems, new solutions, and package and innovate that business in such a phenomenal way. There was a guy selling batteries and they were commoditized, and he decided to talk to his customers and found out the biggest pain they had was with the battery disposal when it's done. So he offered free battery disposal with the sale, and just started taking off because he learned how to talk to his customers. So if you could teach your employees how to do those 5 core skills, there's a couple other skills in there too, and then how to speak to customers. And like, if you had a team, for example, in your company dedicated to measuring the results that your customers get when they buy a product, like you have one employee or someone on your team that does for an hour every Monday, they have a system they follow to monitor and measure the activity of results that your product's providing. And also talk to customers that are not getting results and find out the biggest problem they're having and running up against to get a result. And you're able to innovate your product that way. It's really based on just finding fundamentally really awful things, but they're also they can also be really, really subtle issues that your customers are facing. But in terms of, somebody asked me, like, how do you become innovative and disruptive? I was like, I do not focus on innovation and disruption. I focus on the very clear customer and the dream result they want. And then if I can figure out the mechanism to provide, like Elon Musk doesn't know how he's getting to Mars. He might like have it. Customer, humanity, result, Mars, figure out mechanism. So customer, like a chiropractor was complaining about how he's got to call an insurance company to get insurance information. So his dream result is to get his insurance data without having to call anyone. Well, if I get a chiropractor with that kind of a clear result, then I can put a team in place to figure that out. That would be, quote, innovative for chiropractors. But our focus isn't innovation. Our focus is an obsessed love for our customers, true care for our customers, so that when they buy, you're with them every step of the way, so that the flawless experience to a positive outcome is there. And if you could instill that spirit in every single one of your employees, that we're only in business if our customers are getting a result with the product, and you orient around customer result mechanism, I mean, I'd just be jazzed to help anyone I could with this and try and instill that. Because I would say buy Start from Zero and give it to your employees to read. But that the book may in of itself, the book will teach you how to build equity every day. And if you're not having your employees build equity every day, they might not, like, it may get employees leaving the company. So, but I mean, if you skim the book and you thought it would be good, and you actually do give ownership to your employees, and you do encourage entrepreneurial thinking, and you do encourage future entrepreneurship for your employees, I mean, the book's incredible. We've got there's personality data on our successful entrepreneurs. Like, we have scientific sums to it. We took 30 successful financially free entrepreneurs and did a quantitative analysis on a 26-factor analysis of the personality to find the top 5 traits and the bottom 5 scoring traits. And you could actually instill those in your employees, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, and they would be very effective skills.
Now, Dane just talked about employee innovation. When you want your employees to think differently, you've got to have a different relationship with failure. You can't have innovation and be so restrictive that you don't allow people to fail. You want them to have that sense of safety, the psychological safety, to really share these ideas, execute on them, develop tests, allow them to get feedback, and to move forward and grow and learn from all of these failures. Innovation is a series of these over and over and over. And the organizations I talk to and the leadership I get to connect with and my clients really do have a different relationship with failure because they know the importance of innovation. Now back to the interview. I love to talk about ownership. I've had many conversations with founders. They want their people to take ownership. But you mentioned ownership versus expert.
Yes.
What is that distinction?
Well, I mean, okay, the first thing that comes to look, if you're an NBA basketball player, the average NBA player makes $3 million a year. The average owner makes 12. So experts make on average a fourth of what an owner makes in the NBA. But Chicago Bulls owner I researched, he makes $55 million a year for owning a basketball team. So that's financially for us as founders and Inc. 5000 is like ownership. But in terms of ownership versus expertise in the employee realm, the way that you would look at that is releasing the ego that tries to teaching your employees how to not impress you with their expertise and how to maybe impress you with their initiative of finding expertise. That's how I would probably talk about that. To be honest, awesome. I've always thought about it as entrepreneur ownership, just trying to get people to think about how much more lucrative it can be to be an owner if you relinquish your desire to be the expert. It's right. Pretty lucrative. But I would be able to warp that so it's implementable.
And that's one reason why I think founders should be pushing this down, not trying to be the owners themselves, but have these people taking ownership across the company, because that's a fully leveraged model as opposed to,
oh, yes.
Hi, I'm the owner and you guys are the experts.
Yes. Oh God. I mean, yes, if you can encourage ownership thinking with your employees, you could talk to them a lot less. They sit down in front of you and they talk about the results they're getting. But, you've probably heard of Valve, right? The video game company, or
Yes.
maybe not. But like that guy, the way he sets up his teams, it's incredible. Like they have floating desks and they roll around and work on whatever project they want, and they're compensated based on their contribution to the project, and they have ownership in certain projects, and it's a pretty cool, but that's probably way beyond scope of Inc. 5000.
Well, I wanted to have you on the show today to just give your insight. I know you've put a lot of work into the profiling of successful entrepreneurs, and all of that's in the book, Start From Zero. So Dane, I really appreciate you being here, sharing your wisdom and your thoughts on creating that self-managing company.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate you being here, Dane, and sharing all of these insights.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Wow, what a powerful interview. I really love talking to other people with new perspectives who've dug deep on the research like Dane has. And if he's mapped out some of the core entrepreneurial thinking aspects for your employees to adopt so that they can create self-managing companies, they can solve problems, they can be proactive. All of those elements that you want inside your culture, your organization, is solved when you accept that you want your employees to think like entrepreneurs. I would love for you to share your experiences of entrepreneurial thinking, good or bad. Send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. And if you're questioning your own leadership about how you go to the next level, make sure you reach out to me, gene@genehammett.com. As always, lead with courage. I'll see you next time.